All right, let's dive into a skill that can honestly make or break your career: business writing. From a quick email to a huge, game-changing report, we're going to look at how to make your words not just, effective, but really, truly powerful.
So here's a question I bet you've thought about. Is being a great writer some kind of art, or is it a science? For so long, we've had this idea that amazing writers are just born with it, right? It's like this magical talent. You either have it or you don't. Well, it turns out that's not the whole story.
Not even close, actually. Because now, for the first time, science is weighing in. Thanks to some incredible advances in neurobiology, we can literally see what's happening inside our brains when we read. And what they're finding is pretty mind-blowing.
And it all comes down to this thing called the reward circuit. Now, this is the part of your brain that lights up when you eat amazing food or get a great big hug. And what's wild is that researchers have found that good writing, really well-crafted prose, it triggers the exact same pleasure response. It releases dopamine. Your brain literally enjoys it.
So here's the big takeaway. This isn't magic. It's a science. There are specific, identifiable things that great writing does that our brains are just wired to love. And today, we're going to unpack a toolkit of 8 of these science-backed principles that anybody, and I mean anybody, can learn and start using right away.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute foundation of everything: clarity. Because before you can be clever or persuasive, people just have to understand what you're saying. These first few principles are all about making it super easy for your reader's brain to get your message. First up, simplicity. You have to remember, our brains are kind of lazy. They're always trying to save energy. So when you use short sentences and simple, familiar words, you increase what scientists call processing fluency. The easier your writing is to read and understand, the more rewarding it actually feels to the brain.
And here's a perfect everyday example of that in action. Active voice versus passive voice. Just listen to these 2 sentences. Investors love profits. Super clear, right? Now listen to this. Profits are loved by investors. You see how you had to work just a little bit harder to process that? Well, studies show that tiny switch can cut comprehension by as much as 10%. Now, it might only be a fraction of a second, but that friction really adds up over a whole document and just wears your reader out.
All right, next up we have specificity. So when you read a general word like bird, your brain just kind of processes the concept. But if you read a specific word like pelican, something incredible happens. Your neurons start to embody that meaning. The visual and motor parts of your brain actually light up as if you're really seeing it. The writing just becomes so much more vivid and real. And wow, does this quote from Jeff Bezos just nail it? He didn't say, we're facing strong competition from other sellers. That's so abstract. Instead, he wrote this. You can feel the impact of that sentence. It's real, it's memorable, and it's way more rewarding for the brain to process than some generic corporate jargon.
Okay, so you've got clarity down. People can understand you. But now, how do you get them to care? That's where we add the spark. This next batch of principles is all about grabbing your reader's attention and really keeping them hooked.
You see, our brains are basically prediction machines. They're constantly trying to guess what's coming next. Now, when your writing just confirms what they expect, that's fine. But when you throw in something new, something unexpected, bam, you command their attention. Surprise forces the brain to stop, pay attention, and update its map of the world, which helps that new information really stick.
So just how big of a deal is this? Well, check this out. A study looked at almost 7,000 New York Times articles. They found that the articles people rated as surprising were 14% more likely to end up on the most emailed list. That novelty is exactly what makes us want to hit share and tell someone about what we just read.
Okay, this next one is absolutely huge. We all like to think we're these super logical creatures, right? But get this. Our brains process the emotional punch of a word in just 200 milliseconds. That is way faster than we understand its actual definition. So before you even know what a word means, you know how it feels. Emotion gets its foot in the door first, which makes any logic that follows way more persuasive.
Let's look at this side by side. On the left, you have phrases that are fine, promote innovation. But on the right, prize ingenuity. See how that feels more active, more valuable? Or how about challenge the competition versus outwit rivals? One is a statement, the other is a story. Just choosing these more evocative words creates an instant, much stronger connection.
All right, this next principle is a fun one: seductiveness. It turns out our brains love anticipation. sometimes even more than the reward itself. It's like planning a vacation. You can get that same feeling in your writing by building curiosity, asking questions, and hinting at what's to come. You make your readers desperate to find out what's on the next page.
And who was an absolute master of this? Steve Jobs. Just listen to the opening of his famous Stanford speech. With that one simple line, he creates this immediate sense of intrigue. You're not just listening to a speech anymore. You are waiting for these 3 specific stories. He's got you hooked right from the start.
So we've got clarity, we've got engagement. The final piece of the puzzle is connection. These last few principles are all about forging a much deeper, more meaningful bond with your reader. It's about offering them real insight and tapping into what makes us human.
You know that feeling, that little jolt of pleasure when you solve a puzzle or when an idea just clicks into place? That aha moment? Well, those flashes of insight are intensely pleasurable for the brain. So if you can structure your writing to actually deliver one of those moments, you're giving your reader a really powerful mental reward.
In fact, let's do a little experiment right now. On the screen, I'm showing you 3 words: house, bark, and apple.
So, take a second. What's the one word that relates to all 3 of those? You can feel your brain working on it, right? Scanning for the answer, trying to make that connection.
Got it? It's tree, treehouse, tree bark, apple tree. That little spark you just felt when you got it, that's the feeling of insight. That is the exact kind of satisfying reward you can bake into your writing for your audience.
Look, we're human. We're fundamentally social creatures. Our brains are hardwired to pay attention to other people, their thoughts, their problems, their stories. When you include a human element in your writing, use a personal voice. And especially when you talk directly to your reader by using the word you light up these social circuits and make your message so much more engaging and memorable.
And that brings us to our final principle, which is kind of the big one that ties it all together: storytelling. A good story is really the perfect delivery system because it naturally combines so many of these other principles we've talked about: surprise, emotion, social content. In fact, research using fMRI scans shown that when someone tells an engaging story, the listener's brain activity actually starts to mirror the storyteller's. It's like a genuine mind meld.
So when you boil it all down, it comes back to this one simple idea. Strong writing isn't just about dumping information on someone. It's about creating an experience. It's really an act of generosity. When you use these principles, you're basically following the writer's golden rule. Create a rewarding, pleasurable experience for your reader, because that's what our brains are fundamentally wired to love.